Hey everybody, and welcome to the first ever episode of Carlos Knows Real Estate. My name is Carlos and I am a real estate investor and broker in the state of Rhode Island as well as Massachusetts. So today's video is going to be about the basics of flipping houses for beginners, as well as taking a look at the numbers to see if a potential flip will make you some money. So if this is something that you're interested in learning more about, stay tuned and let's get started. So you may be asking yourself, what's the first thing you need to do in order to start flipping your first house? And honestly, the answer is that you need to find yourself a good realtor, okay? Your realtor is going to be an invaluable resource for you when it comes to not only helping you find the properties that you want to flip and helping you resell them, but also connecting you with very important people that you need to have on your team in order to have success in this business. All right, so let's take a look at some of the people that you'll need to build relationships with. You'll need to find somebody that's going to help finance the property for you. Okay, not only when you purchase it, but also help finance the renovation. You're going to need to find and build a good relationship with some general contractors, and you're going to need a good attorney that's going to look out for your best interests when you're going through the buying and selling process as well. Okay, so let's take a look at an example, okay? Your realtor finds you a property located in Cranston, Rhode Island. It's a 3-bedroom, 1.5-bath ranch with 1,400 square feet. Has no garage, sits on a 6,000 square foot lot, and the seller is asking $200,000. Now, your realtor thinks that there's potential here for you to make some money. You look at the pictures, you like what you see, and you want to know more. So how much should you offer on this property? And the key thing that you need to keep in mind here is that when you're calculating your numbers, you need to work backwards, okay? The first thing you need to find out from your realtor is you need to find out how much the house will sell for once it's fully renovated. You also need to get estimates on the renovation of work that you need done from your general contractor, and you need to ask how long it's going to take to get the work done. Okay, that's very important because you need to factor in what your potential financing charges are, and that's all based on time. After you calculate your finance charges, you're also going to calculate your carrying costs, which we'll speak on in a little bit, and you're going to need to figure out your commission and closing costs as well. Now, one thing that a lot of people forget to do is they forget to factor in a certain amount for unexpected expenses, okay? When you do renovations, things don't always go as planned, and some unforeseen repairs usually come up that need to be taken care of. So you need to have some kind of a buffer or at least some extra money set aside for those unexpected expenses. Once you have all these numbers, you also need to plug in your projected profit. So figure out what you want your profit margin to be, and then once you have all these numbers, you can calculate how much of an offer to make. So what you want to do in order to get accurate numbers, obviously you want to get some estimates from your general contractor in order to see how much the work is going to cost. I recommend getting at least 2 or 3 contractors to go look at the job, especially when you're first starting out, because you need to build relationships with different contractors, okay? You might clash with a couple of guys and you might get along really well with other guys. So you won't know until you speak to different people. But keep in mind that good contractors are busy. You want to contact these contractors to see how much notice they need in order to meet you at a property and to give you an estimate. So you need to plan accordingly. So what do we know so far based on the information that we've covered? Well, your realtor runs some comps and he tells you that this ranch in Cranston could potentially sell for $325,000 to $350,000 once all the renovation is done. The contractors that you spoke to gave you ranges of $40,000 to $50,000 to get the work done, and you know that the seller is asking $200,000 for the property. So if you were to look at just these numbers, you would be thinking to yourself, wow, I could potentially make $85,000 to $110,000, which is a great profit margin, for this house. And you may be asking, what the hell was I talking about earlier, not being able to make 30%? Well, there's other costs associated with flipping houses. It's not just, buying a property, seeing what it could sell for, and then deducting the cost of the renovation. Okay, so let's take a look at some of these other factors. First, how are you going to pay for all of this? Let's say you're getting into this business and you have $35,000 in your pocket and you want to flip your first house. So when you began this process, your realtor helped you secure a hard money lender that would finance 90% of the purchase price of a house that you were interested in, and they would lend you 100% of the renovation costs. So in this example, they're asking $200,000 for the house. You have to put down 10% because the lender will finance 90% of it. Since you have $35,000, 10% of that is $20,000. You know that this is a project that you can get into because you have the money to get started. Okay, so now let's take a look at the costs of the loan. All right, you secured a loan charging you 15% in finance charges with 2 points on the purchase. Okay, if you're not familiar with points and what they are, points, 1 point is 1% of the loan amount. Okay, so in this case, you're borrowing $180,000. 1 point is $1,800. 2 points is $3,600. Okay, so that's where I got this number from. So your total investment on the property is the $20,000 that you need to put down plus the $3,600 in points that you need to pay up front. Okay, that's your out-of-pocket expense. Now, like I mentioned earlier, time is of the essence when you flip properties. The longer it takes to flip, the less profitable you're going to be on the project. You got to also remember that real estate markets can change very quickly. The last thing you want to happen is for a downturn in the market when you're flipping a house, because the numbers that you calculated earlier might not necessarily be there when you go to sell if the market's in a downturn and the prices are coming down. So let's look even deeper in the numbers now. So the contractor that you chose said that he could do the renovations in 12 weeks. He can start a week after you close on the house. Your realtor tells you that it will probably take about 8 weeks to find a buyer and get you to the closing table. And assuming that everything goes planned, which normally it doesn't, I mean, there's always some kind of delay and setback, so, don't take these numbers to heart, okay? But you have to factor in some time for, delays to come up. You're looking at a turnaround table of about 21 weeks, all right? That's 12 weeks for the renovation. He starts a week after you close. That's 13 weeks. 8 weeks to find a buyer and get you to the closing table. That's your 21 weeks, all right? So now you want to calculate your finance charges, okay? Assuming that your lender's charging you simple interest on a $180,000 loan plus $50,000 in renovations. Let's just say this renovation cost you $50,000. You borrowed a total of $230,000 from this lender. $230,000 at 15%. If you were to do the loan for a year, you would be paying $34,500 in interest over 52 weeks. If you divide this by the 52 weeks, you're paying $663.46 per week just in finance charges for the time that you're carrying this loan. So based on these estimations, if the whole project takes you 21 weeks, you're going to spend almost $14,000 just in interest on this project. Okay, so what are your additional expenses going to be? You're going to have to pay points and closing costs when you purchase the property, as we had already discussed. You also want to get property insurance on this house. Okay, the last thing you want to do is have a scenario where you purchase this property, you start the renovations, and there was an accidental fire, or somebody breaks in, or maybe a pipe bursts and the whole house gets flooded. If you don't have insurance, you're asking for a disaster to happen, okay? So factor in money for an insurance policy. Make sure you buy that policy before, you get to the closing table. You're also going to have to pay utilities. So if you're in a city like Cranston, you'll have to pay a water bill, a sewer bill. You'll probably have electric, gas, oil. You'll have to pay heating costs if you're doing renovations in the wintertime. If you're in the Northeast, at least, if you work in, live in a warmer state, your electric bill is going to be higher because you want air conditioning in the house if air conditioning is available. Factor in some money for these carrying costs and utilities. The miscellaneous, we talked about this earlier. You want to have 10% of the renovation cost set aside. So in case there's any foreseen issues and expenses that come up, you have the money in place already. You already factored it in as an expense. If you don't use it, great. That just means your profit margins are going to be higher. But it's there in case you need it. And chances are you're going to need it. I flipped several houses and unforeseen things always come up, okay? You'll also have to pay property taxes while you're holding on to the house or, while the house is yours. And you'll have to factor in commission costs when you sell as well as closing costs. So how much profit do you want to make on this property? Well, in this example, let's say you want to make $40,000 on this flip. Okay, let's take a look at all the numbers. Okay, you want to calculate all your projected expenses so that you can decide if the $200,000 that the seller is asking for is a fair number. Let's say you do pay $200,000 for the property. your renovation costs are $50,000. Let's say you put $5,000 aside, which is 10% of your renovation cost. Okay, $5,000 aside as that buffer that we talked about for unforeseen expenses. Your total finance charges are $17,532.70. Okay, so this is for the interest that we calculated plus the $3,600 in points that you paid up front. You paid closing costs of $1,500 when you bought the property. So this is attorney fees, recording fees, title insurance. You paid for these costs. There's also the property insurance, which let's say for 6 months is $1,100. You factor in about $1,000 for the utilities. Your property taxes for 6 months are about $1,800. The commission, which is $325,000 at 6%, would be $19,500. The closing costs that you pay on the selling side, which include transfer taxes, some other miscellaneous expenses, attorney fees, things like that. Let's just estimate $2,500. And let's say that your total expenses are $289,932. So roughly $290,000 to purchase this property, renovate it, pay all the carrying costs in order to renovate the property. So in this case, if you do sell for $325,000, I know we talked about a range of $325,000 to $350,000. When you're doing your estimations, try to stick to the lower end. What you see in some of those TV shows where they give you an estimate and then the house sells for $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 or more after. That's really not super realistic. It really depends on the market that you're in. Okay, but just to be conservative and safe, plan on selling the house for on the lower range of what your realtor tells you. Factor in your total expenses, and in this case, yeah, if you paid $200,000, your potential profit would be a little over $40,000. So based on these numbers, you should not offer more than $200,000 on the property. Let's say you wanted to make $50,000 in profit, then your offer should be $190,000. Well, guys, I mean, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I know I went through a lot of information relatively quickly. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. If you're in the area of Rhode Island and southeastern Massachusetts, I'm just a phone call away. I'm happy to guide you through the process. This channel is pretty much going to be for educational purposes only. But I'm here, I want to share my experiences with you as a real estate investor and flipper. But also I'm looking to hear from other people that are also in the business and maybe compare notes and see how they do things. I mean, I don't know everything that there is to know. I do know a lot about a lot of different things in real estate, but if you're in this business, you know that you're always learning something, no matter how long you've been in this business. So I really appreciate you guys checking out the channel, watching this video. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.